Hello and welcome to Wisdom Trek. This is Guthrie Chamberlain and I'm your guide to wisdom and creating a living legacy. Thank you for joining us for our 7-day-a-week, 7 Minutes of Wisdom podcast. This is day 247 of our trek, and for the next several days we are remaining in camp as we search for the nuggets of wisdom found in the book of Proverbs. Yesterday we explored chapter 7 verses 1 through 5, and if you missed any of the days of our Wisdom Trek episodes, please go to wisdom-trek.com to listen to them and to read the daily journal. Paul and I are refining all the daily concepts along with worksheets in an easy-to-use workbook for your life plan blueprint, which we covered during the month of January. I will let you know once it's completed so that you can download it. We are recording our podcast from our studios at home too in Charlotte, North Carolina. We traveled back to Charlotte on Sunday afternoon. Fortunately, the weather had moderated and it allowed for a cool but a beautiful trip south. Our schedule for this week is full as usual with many life events. Even though we are now in February, we are continuing to fine-tune the aspects of our life plan for 2016. Life planning is an ongoing process as we take each day and each week and make minor course corrections to our overall plan. We are gathering around the campfire again today as we see the logs burning and crackling before us. Now, if you're like me, I enjoy poking at the burning logs and watching the sparks fly into the air and smelling the scent of the logs as they burn. If you're not careful, though, it is easy to get too close and get burnt, or the wind could suddenly shift and send smoke into your eyes, blinding you. And this is a perfect analogy for our story in Chapter 7 of the book of Proverbs. Let's dig for the nuggets of wisdom contained in this chapter, and we don't have to dig very deep to gain understanding. The subject of today's passage is another warning about immoral women. Chapter 7, and we'll read verses 6 through 9. While I was at the window of my house looking through the curtain, I saw some naive young men, and one in particular who lacked common sense. He was crossing the street near the house of the immoral woman, strolling down the path to her house. It was twilight in the evening as the deep darkness fell. This story here begins in verse 6. Solomon was watching the people. He was watching them because he knew how easy it is for people to make unwise choices. He wanted to see the reason why other people made mistakes. He wanted to understand more. He wanted to become wiser so he could better advise those who were being tempted. In verse 7, Solomon saw a young man who was naive or simple. And if you want to get an understanding of what a simple person means, please listen to Wisdom Trek Day 246 to gain some additional understanding. This young man had not learned to be wise. He was in danger because he was not wise. He lacked common sense, and it was easy for him to be tempted. He did not think about what was right. As we consider verse 8, we want to shout to this young man, "Stop!" This simple young man had made an unwise choice by crossing the street and then found himself on the wrong path. He may have rationalized to himself that he was just crossing the street to get a closer look, but it would not hurt him. That's sort of like getting too close to the campfire and getting burnt. Remember, any time that we rationalize our actions, we are telling ourselves rational lies. We may convince ourselves that it is okay, but that does not make it so. He chose to cross the street, which was clearly a naive choice. Down that path there was danger. He approached the place where the woman would tempt him. The young man was simple and lacked common sense. He did not think about wisdom. Perhaps his father never taught the young man. Perhaps if he had, the young man never listened to the lessons. Maybe he forgot about the wisdom. Regardless of the reasons, they are only excuses. The fact is that he made a conscious choice to cross the street and put himself clearly in the path of danger. In verse 9, the young man was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Did this happen by accident? I would say not. We will never find ourselves in situations where we are confronted with irresistible temptations. In this story, we see a simple, naive young man who had made two premeditated and conscious choices. First, the time of day that he chose to walk was in the evening, when the prostitutes begin their trade. Second, he chose to cross the street to the other side, where he would place himself clearly in her path. Even if we are strong, we may think wrong thoughts, but we'll make the wise choices to prevent putting ourselves in situations where we are apt to fall into temptation and sin. However, when we are weak, evil ideas can tempt us more easily. We will find it very difficult to resist when we are tempted. If we want to avoid falling into sin, we must not allow ourselves to be placed in situations where we find it hard to resist. We need to fully understand and accept that there is no situation that is impossible to resist. The Apostle Paul wrote this in his letter to the Church of Corinth in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. The temptations in life are no different from what others experience. God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, he will show you a way out so that you can endure. So back to our story. We see that it is twilight or evening. This young man may have wanted to experience some nightlife. This young man was looking for some fun. He did not trust that God could give him fun and enjoyment in other ways. He was very weak. We need to be very careful and realize that the evil one, who is Satan or the devil, wants to destroy us, as is written in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Stay alert. Watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Don't let that someone to be you. We must stand firm and trust God. One of the interesting aspects that I like about God's Word is it tells it like it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In today's passage, we see why it is so important to know and understand your values so that when you need to make choices, that you'll make wise choices. Tomorrow we will continue to see how the story of the naive and simple young man plays out based on the decisions that he made. We will continue in chapter 7, starting at verse 10. So encourage your family and friends to join us and then come along with us tomorrow for another day of Wisdom Trek, Creating a Legacy. That will finish our podcast for today. As you enjoy these daily doses of wisdom, I encourage you to help us promote Wisdom Trek in the following 4 ways. First, leave us feedback about the podcast at wisdom-trek.com so that we can continually improve. Second, on your smartphone, subscribe to iTunes, Google Play, Spreaker, SoundCloud, or Stitcher so that the podcast will be downloaded to you automatically each day. Third, on your computer, or if you have an iPhone or iPad, please leave us a rating and a review at iTunes so the podcast can gain exposure and others will find us and join us on our Wisdom Trek. And fourth, most importantly, please share Wisdom Trek with your family and friends through email, Facebook, Twitter, or in person as you meet with them, and invite them to come along with us each day. The journal for today's trek can be found at wisdom-trek.com. Thank you for allowing me to be your guide, your mentor, but most importantly, I do consider you my friend, as I serve you through the Wisdom Trek podcast and journal each day. As we take this trek together, let us always live abundantly, love unconditionally, listen intentionally, learn continuously, lend to others generously, lead with integrity, and leave a living legacy each day. This is Guthrie Chamberlain reminding you to keep moving forward, enjoy your journey, and then create a great day every day. See you tomorrow.